Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about cryptozoology. Who could tell me what cryptozoology is? Right here. Finding what you extinct animals is awfully close. I'm going to give you a buck for that. That would be paleontology, I think. But cryptozoology. Crypto is hidden. Zoology is studying animals. It's the study of hidden animals. Hidden animals like the Loch Ness Monster or El Chupacabra or fairies. This is an authentic picture of fairies from the turn of the century. This is a very successful scam until they found the exact storybook where those fairies are cut out of, and then they kind of had to come clean. Or unicorns, vampires, werewolves, and of course the holy grail of any cryptozoologist, Sasquatch, Bigfoot. They call him the abominable snowman when he's tootling around the Himalayas. They call him Mapinguari when he's hanging out in the Amazon. They call him Yowie when he's hanging out in Australia, or Yeti all across Asia. This guy gets around. How many of you guys have seen this photo before? Does anyone know where this photo came from? Right here. It's from a movie. Yeah, a lot of people don't know this. It's from an 8mm film. Give her a trick deck of cards. That's a good answer. An 8mm film shot in the 60s. It's called either the Gimli film or the Patterson film. A lot of debate about this. Nothing short of finding this exact costume is going to settle it one way or another. But recently there's a book that came out. It was a huge biography about Patterson, one of the co-creators of the film. And this guy went around and interviewed anyone who ever had dealings with Patterson. And every single person had a story about how Patterson screwed them in some way. So there's a dubious origin, this film is. Okay, so, and even then, it's a great photo here, but remember what we learned about UFOs. It could be faked pretty easily, and so as a result, I'm not going to take that as completely good evidence. What other evidence do we have? We got 18 bazillion different types of Sasquatch footprint, which could mean that there are 18 bazillion different types of Sasquatches, right? Or it could mean that there are 18 bazillion different types of hoaxsters who have different ideas as to what a Sasquatch footprint would look like. Furthermore, and by the way, I don't think that all of these are necessarily intentional fakes. I think a lot of times, if you start off assuming that something's true, you're going to find evidence to support that. If you start off believing there's a Sasquatch in your backyard, and then you see a sinkhole, and you go, ooh, I bet that's a Sasquatch footprint. And you fill it in with plaster, you're like, well, that doesn't look right. So you chisel it down, and you're like, yeah, that looks better. And pretty soon, you end up with something like that. It's very easy to fool yourself. And we'll talk a little bit more of that in the future. But for right now, what's the other evidence we have? Well, like the UFOs, we've got 18 bazillion different stories of people who've encountered. How many of you guys know someone who has seen a Bigfoot? Only a few people. Normally a lot more people have. But I want you to consider the following. How many of you guys have heard that phrase, well, they can't all be wrong, right? You mean to tell me that all million people who claim to see Sasquatch are wrong? Well, let's take a look at that. We actually have an interesting case here. In 1979, in a zoo in Holland, a panda bear cub was going on display. It was a huge deal. They brought the panda bear cub in. They were about to show it, and then the day before this exhibit was to open, the panda bear cub escaped. So they contacted the newspaper. They said, we got to get the word out. There's a panda bear cub on the loose out here in Holland. Call this number if you see him. 2 hours before the newspaper hit the stands, they found the dead body of the panda bear cub. It had been run over by a train right behind the zoo. But it took 2 days to update the story. And in the 2 days they were updating the story, they received over 1,000 phone calls of people who saw the panda bear cub, even though it was never even there. So when you hear people say, well, they can't all be wrong, no, we have factual evidence that yes, they can and have all been wrong before. Furthermore, we saw this here in the United States as well. You guys remember the D.C. sniper suspect, right? They made the mistake of saying, we think he's in a white van. For 2 weeks, they couldn't get anything done. The switchboards were jammed. Everyone was saying, yeah, I saw him, and he was shooting people and ran off in his white van. They couldn't get anything done, and it turns out he wasn't even in a white van. He was in like a freaking El Camino or something. It's like you couldn't be more wrong. So there is a problem. And we all see things. Furthermore, what do we not have? We don't have any Sasquatch bones, no Sasquatch poop, no dead Sasquatches. You would think sooner or later one of those would have to turn up. And to me, this is the most damning evidence. The most damning evidence is recently Ray L. Wallace, one of the biggest promoters of Bigfoot, died at the age of 85. And when he died, his family finally felt like they could come clean. That back in the 1950s, he paid a carpenter friend of his to make some giant wooden Sasquatch feet that he could strap on over his shoes, and he went stomping around. This is me being Ray Wallace. He went stomping around the forest and say, ooh, Sasquatch footprints. And he got his name in all the newspapers by offering $1 million reward for a baby Bigfoot. That's easy to do when you know you just made it up. He had a lot of fun at everyone else's expense. And to me, it's pretty big. It's a pretty heavy blow to the Bigfoot myth. Any questions about any of the monster hunting? Okay, now realize the reason this stuff survives is because it always begins by starting with the story. You start with the story, then you look for evidence to support the story. You'll always find evidence to support the story, no matter how nutty it is. If I told you that Space Monkey is a mysterious creature that lives inside this theater, and you honestly believed it, every time something got knocked over, ooh, Space Monkey knocked that over. Every time you see a lion in the dust, ooh, Space Monkey's tail made that line. It's easy to find evidence. What's hard is to come up with a way to test your theory that actually puts your theory in jeopardy of being shown up.